So, it's so nice to see you all here. Like, I'm super impressed that you've managed to stay whole day, and I'm super impressed that you are still here knowing that I'm speaking the last keynote. So, my topic for this today presentation is the most vague topic I could come up with, so I can talk about whatever I want, and it still will be on topic. So yes, future of F# web development, and as one of my colleagues, my friends on Twitter suggested the other title about what I do in general. It's Web Fables told by a sometime photographer and dedicated hill walker, and that's a really good title. So my name is Chris. You can know me from a couple of things: Ionite, Saturn, ranting on Twitter, being annoyingly vocal, talking about open source, about F# tooling, about developer experience, about photography. Anyone? No? Yeah. That's sad. You should follow me on 500px. But before we go any further, for those of you who missed great talk by Thomas before, who attended another great talk in another room, there is competition going on right now. There is competition going on right now that you need to go to this link on your mobile devices, and there is a game. Mobile game written in Fable that was written during 45 minutes before my talk by Thomas on this stage. He deployed this on Azure. There is also mobile, it's also a mobile game, a classic of mobile games. And the winner, there is high score thingy, and the winner of the competition, we will choose the person that has highest score at the end of this keynote, will get this amazing book, Get Programming with F# by Isaac. So yeah, let's do that. And I really want to thank Thomas for sabotaging my keynote, because all you are going to play a mobile game while I will be talking. Actually, this might be useful because at least you will do something fun. Yes, and I have warning before we go any further in this talk. There are opinions inside, and some really nice opinions. Some really controversial opinions maybe sometimes, but yes, there are opinions inside. Oh, and I forgot to mention, this is a really great venue, but I'm afraid that I really like this company, you know, this on the page, on the side. So I probably will do some stupid jokes about this company, so let's ignore that. So my really great opinion, web forms is the future. Since 2002, anyone who used web forms? Oh, yeah, whoa, no one used web forms? Yes, there are a couple of people. And I know, I'm some random guy standing on the stage right now, and I'm talking with weird Polish accent, so you don't trust me. But let's go to the most important work created by any F# developer. So Thomas, where is Thomas? Is Thomas somewhere here? No, Thomas is unfortunately outside. So Thomas, in 2004, created this article about ASP.NET, and that means we all know if Thomas creates some article, this must be good. So this is my proof that web forms are the future. No, let's be serious. My talk includes also a couple of really great quotes from really some interesting people. Study the past if you would define the future. So yes, we will study the past a bit, because the plan for this presentation is not only talk about the future, but also talk a bit about the past, because what we've done in the past, what were previous attempts to do F# web programming, impacts what we have right now. We will talk about present, so I will talk about what are some design choices that we've made in F# web stack, why we've made them, and what's the current status of the things. And we will do some wild guesses for the future, but that part is only because I've submitted this topic so long ago, and yeah, future must be in this presentation. So there's another question. Why am I standing here? Why am I talking about, especially about the past? I'm not the oldest one around. I'm not the longest, the person that was longest in the community. I've joined fairly recently, well, a couple of years ago, but fairly recently in comparison to some people that are in the audience. So another great quote. With really great book, I always give books if I can. History viewed from inside is always a dark, digestive mess far different from easily recognizable cow viewed from afar by historians. And what this quote means is that if you were in the center of what was happening in this particular part of the history, you have totally different point of view than people outside. And lucky me, I've been in the really center, maybe not center, like Alfonso has been in center, but I've been around when Fable was created. Because let me tell you a story. There will be a couple of stories in this talk from my experience with Fsharp. So when I first created Ionite, Thomas, I'm always blaming Thomas in this talk, by the way. So Thomas suggested to use Fsharp for writing Ionite. Ionite was first created for Atom. Atom was like worst version of Visual Studio Code that was created by GitHub. So it was also using JavaScript, and actually it was using something called CoffeeScript. CoffeeScript was this weird language that no one should use ever again. Yeah, trust me on that. So the initial proof of concept of whether we actually can do anything useful with this Atom was written in CoffeeScript. That was a couple of features. And then Thomas suggested me to use this fantastic project called Fanscript. Anyone used Fanscript? Yes. Oh, cool. 2 people, 3. Oh, yes, Alfonso used Fanscript. That's part of my story. So anyone used Fanscript on production? I'm probably only one around in Fsharp community who actually deployed applications written in Fanscript to production, but don't tell my ex-company that I've done it, please. So, Fanscript. Fanscript was a previous iteration of Fsharp to JS compiler. It had a lot of problems. It had really bad integration with JavaScript ecosystem in terms of tooling. So it produced a not really standard JavaScript output. Well, it produced just plain JavaScript files. It didn't use modern JavaScript module system or library loading systems like AMD, UMD, whatever. It was a couple of years ago, so my modern means it's not modern anymore, but even back then it was not doing anything that was modern back then. It lacked documentation. Documentation was terrible. It was using really weird trick to generate JavaScript. It was using Fsharp quotations to quote some Fsharp code that was transformed into just strings that concatenated parts of JavaScript. And oh yeah, we have a JavaScript program, which, as we probably all know, it's totally different with Fable, where Fable is reusing Babel for the JavaScript generation part. And it had luck. There was no community built around the Fanscript, with one exception. There was this guy, Alfonso. For some random reason, I don't even know why, he was kind of around the Fanscript. And whenever I had any problem, because I had problems all the time, I've written an issue somewhere, and Alfonso always answered. So, and I know that back then there was a plan to create maybe Fanscript 2.0 or something like that you've been thinking about maybe writing a new version of Fanscript. But in the end, this new version of Fanscript, I believe, has become what we have right now, Fable. Another thing from the past, maybe not from the past as such, but somehow that impacted the place where we are right now is obviously Elm. We've been talking about Elvish whole day, almost today. There will be multiple talks about Elvish. And it's pretty clear that Elvish and Elm architecture in general has huge impact on what we have right now in a Fable ecosystem. And by the way, all the great pictures are from Berlin, so yes, I've prepared a lot for this talk. So yes, Elm. Elm is also functional programming for the web. It's language that's even simpler than Fsharp in many places. It's ML language. It basically removes, it wasn't influenced by Fsharp directly, but if you look at it, it kind of removes all the cool features from Fsharp, like computation expression and all more fancy features. From my point of view, it's DSL, domain-specific language, rather than general-purpose language, because it's focused on doing one thing, and it does this one thing really well. So it's focused on creating single-page web applications. Obviously, Fable can be used not only to create web applications, it can be used to create Node applications. You can do Node.js applications if you want. You can do Visual Studio Code plugins if you want. You can use React Native to do mobile applications if you want. And basically, with Fable, you can target whatever you can with that runs JS. And with Elm, you are constrained to do the single-page web applications with it. On the other hand, it has great developer experience, probably thanks to that. So it has great tooling around building single-page web applications. It has great debugger. It has great way to run applications, and so on, so on, so on. It has fairly bad integration with JavaScript ecosystem. And by fairly bad, I mean it's awful to use. It sounds cool in practice. So you have this notion of something called ports that you basically wrap JavaScript calls into something like promise in our Fsharp world, Fable world, but not exactly like that. And then in Fsharp, you can do promises-based APIs if you want, but you can just, as Thomas shown moments before, you can just do dot into JavaScript object, into normal JavaScript library, and mutate some stuff and be happy with that. Elm, my biggest problem with Elm is that it breaks everyone on every other release. And I hope that we won't do this in Fable too much. Yes, and obviously, we have the Elvish architecture from Elm, and that's amazing. That's probably really the most important thing that we've got from Elm in general. Elm haven't invented the Elvish architecture. Model view update design pattern has been around for quite a lot of time. There has been even different implementations for different web languages of this pattern that were around before Elm, for example, for ClojureScript. But somehow Elm got a bit more mainstream, whatever, if you can call any functional programming language mainstream. And we have nice name, Elvish architecture, which is fine. So the next thing from the past, but also present, please don't be angry at next slide, is Suave. So Suave is this Fsharp web library and implementation of Fsharp web server, which is designed to use Fsharp idiomatic code to build Fsharp applications, Fsharp web applications, server-side Fsharp web applications, which is really, really cool. And I mean, the model that Suave introduced to Fsharp developers, because model itself that it introduced is also not really invented by Suave. It's been around in different implementations in different languages. But the model of combining HTTP handlers or web parts, how it is called in Suave world, to create bigger applications from smaller parts, awesome. Awesome, I love it. Unfortunately, the second point of this list, so web server implementation, is also the biggest weakness of Suave, because how to say it to be nice? Because you don't gain the advantages of integration with general .NET ecosystem, like ASP.NET ecosystem especially. And of course, the implementations had also other problems that we won't talk about. So, as you all know, the continuation of SWAF, or maybe not continuation, but there is a project that was impacted by SWAF, which is called Giraffe, and I will mention it in a second, that solves some of the problems. And also, on the other hand, we have Ruby on Rails. Who used Ruby on Rails in the past? Yeah, a lot of people, not a lot of people. Like, I'm disappointed. Like, no one used web forms, no one used Ruby on Rails. Like, you're using some crazy hipster technologies, like Fable. So Ruby on Rails. Ruby on Rails is like this standard, typical MVC web framework that's designed to make developer experience as pleasant as possible, to make developers as productive as possible. It includes a lot of tooling, scaffolding tooling that you can, oh, new controller, blah. It generates 30,000 lines of code and you have new controller. It's really high-level framework, unlike SWAV. It has really huge and active community, obviously. Like, this is probably the most used web framework around. Well, maybe ignoring some PHP frameworks, but no one cares about those guys. And of course, it has a lot of industrial support and companies that you can hire if you want to do Ruby development, which is never really a case in Fsharp world. I mean, there has been quite a lot of Fsharp consulting companies, but they've been specialized maybe in training Fsharp developers, maybe in introducing people to the language. Not necessarily doing a lot of Fsharp programming per se. And no one was particularly focused on just Fsharp web development story, because probably the only person that should be focused was the author of SWAF, and he doesn't have consulting company, so yeah, whatever. He's doing some cool stuff, some other cool stuff. MinStack. MinStack is this opinionated way to build web applications. It's MongoDB, awesome. What was Express.js, which was like web server library for Node.js. Angular, oh, Angular is so awesome. And Node.js, Node is fine. So yes, this initiative is not about some technological advancements. It was about putting this one stack and starting to promote it, to provide common commercial support for that. And that was something that was totally missing in Fsharp world. So yes, I have really good quote. The lesson of the history is that no one learns. Yeah. But I hope that we actually have learned something, and I will, in the next few slides, I will try to prove that we've actually tried to learn something. And I have really, second point really important, is that synthesis of ideas is way forward. And this is, I was really impacted by one of the Don's talk, where Don talks about how synthesis of ideas was one of the ideas when he designed Fsharp in general, and how it's synthesis of open source and industrial support, how it's synthesis of OO and FP and so on, so on, so on. It's really good talk. You should go online and find it. So yes, so there is this point, and to be fair, most of the current web stack in Fsharp has been designed with this in mind. Maybe not like implicitly, maybe no one, maybe Alfonso or me or anyone else was not really thinking about, oh, we should take those ideas and put them together to make stuff better. But it came as a natural process of, oh, we were exposed to different ideas from different ecosystems. Oh, some of those ideas make sense in Fsharp context. Let's put them together and let's see how it works. So currently we have Fable. Yes, huge round of applause for Alfonso for creating Fable, please. Fable is literally the best thing that happened in Fsharp after Fsharp itself. So yes, Fable allows us to do idiomatic Fsharp code and compile it to JavaScript and run in all weird places where JavaScript runs. It obviously integrates amazingly with JavaScript ecosystem because it's using Fable. And that means that because Fable is this profiling tool in JavaScript ecosystem that everyone is using nowadays, this means that Fable accidentally, by design, I'm not the one to judge, is perfectly integrated with JavaScript ecosystem. It focuses on good developer experience, I feel. I mean, we have some work to do on this space. As Hin mentioned in her talk, there are some problems with maybe developer experience in context of Fable in general, naming functions, different ideas, putting those different ideas as a coherent thing, united thing together in Fable. But yes, it's adopting good ideas from different ecosystems. And in principle, I think that this is a value in what Fable is. So yes, this is amazing. On the other hand, on the server side, we have Saturn that some random guy created. And don't do round of applause for him. So Saturn is taking ideas of, as was mentioned in the introduction, maybe from Phoenix, but since Phoenix is basically Ruby on Rails for Elixir, then that's why I've mentioned Ruby on Rails before. So we have Saturn that tries to synthesize not only functional programming with more OO-oriented type of design pattern, because it's implementing MVC pattern, which traditionally people think about as a typically open object-oriented pattern. It also tries to synthesize the high-level programming and low-level programming in context of web applications. Of course, it's not low-level programming like with assembler. It's low-level programming, where low-level programming is something like Suave model, where you manually need to put together HTTP handlers. And Saturn is providing some higher-level building blocks that can naturally be composed with low-level code, and there is absolutely no problem with that, which is something that is really interesting if you analyze most MVC frameworks or most high-level frameworks in web space. They are often high-level, but it's really difficult to go to lower level. You need to, I don't know, overload some magical interfaces that only ASP.NET team knows how they are called or something like that. So yes. Also, it's of course running on top of ASP.NET, and that means that Saturn and Giraffe tries to synthesize this like Fsharp community that's been focused on open source and like doing stuff on their own for a lot of time with the ASP.NET, more traditional industrial quality, which is amazing. It's driven by community. Yes, I've come up with idea, but we have a lot of contributors right now to the project. We have a lot of contributors that are not only contributing code, but also just are impacting the design of the application of the framework. And those are still early days of the framework, so the potential impact is huge. So I welcome all of you to go to Saturn repository. There are some really cool discussions over there, and feedback is always welcomed. It's focused on developer productivity like Ruby on Rails or Phoenix from Elixir ecosystem. That's, again, something that we haven't got much in Fsharp before. We had a great programming model with Suave and Giraffe, but those were like not scaling. And scaling means the same meaning as Zaid mentioned in his scaling Elvish talk, where not scaling in terms of performance, but making the application bigger and bigger. And Saturn tries to solve this problem with some additional tooling. And we have also Safestock. Woo, Safestock. Huge round of applause for Isaac for coming with idea of Safestock. So the important thing about Safestock is it's not technical project. It's not really technical solution. I mean, those technologies existed separately before we've started working on Safestock. Well, maybe Saturn is small exception because Saturn was created somehow after the Safestock was announced, but Saturn was always my idea. Like, it was an idea before even we've started to think about Safestock. So this is the initiative that's focused on promotion, on marketing, on documentation, on bringing together all those tools and showing you how you can use them well together, showing you some opinionated way of how you can create an application. And that's really important because that's how you sell those tools to your management. Because they don't care that we need to make 15 decisions to what technologies use, what libraries use, whatever. No, we don't usually, as software developers working in commercial settings, we don't have time for that. So you have this predefined set of technologies that work well together that you can go to your boss, show, oh, there is this cool website showing all testimonials and stuff like that. And it also have commercial support. Commercial support is also really important for selling the technologies to your bosses. And actually, the Safestock was announced a year ago on FableConf, and so that's important day for us because that's one 1 year anniversary of Safestock. So, whew. Yes. So, yes, I have more quotes. One, Star Trek. Sorry, all Star Wars fan. Yeah, but of course there are online, there are those people, those people but saying me stuff like, but hey, web is about documents and it's about like sending documents over URL and that's all pure. You should use pure HTML and CSS and this JS thing, it's terrible because it's destroying the web we know, or maybe something like that. That JS frameworks are evil and JQuery was enough and zero depth. And whenever I see something like that in the internet, on Twitter, on Reddit, I immediately think that the person writing that haven't written any web application in the last 15 years. Because yes, that may have been a case a couple of years ago, like when web forms were the future, that may be a case. But right now, web is not only this document platform for sending documents that it was designed in 80s as a www standard and as is described in a lot of RFCs. Web nowadays is an application platform. So it's a platform that enables you to write application, put it somewhere, and this is way of distributing your application to users to run this application. JavaScript world, you know, there are those great pictures saying 2012, Knockout.js 2013, Backbone 2014, something else, Angular 2015, something else, and showing that this JS ecosystem is like crazy, and it's bad because it's crazy. But JavaScript ecosystem is changing so fast because web is changing so fast in principle. And to show you that, like, the best thing to show you to show that is the fact that iPhone is 10 years old. I mean, 10 years is really not a lot of time, and right now we cannot imagine our lives without mobile phones, smartphones, and we probably don't even. We soon will start calling smartphones mobile phones again because normal mobile phones will be so dead that there will be no distinction. So the smartphone is just normal phone for most of us nowadays. And soon there will be people in the world, maybe in 2 years on this conference, that won't even remember the times before iPhone because iPhone is 10 years old, so they remember some stuff when they've been 5 years old, so they are 15. In 2 years, they will be 17. They may be software developers if they are like crazy. So yes, so soon we won't remember the times where there were no iPhones. We won't remember the times when the web was this pure HTML, CSS document model that you just push document over URL, and actually documents should have URLs to different documents, and that's all what they should do. So the JavaScript world is changing because it's adapting to the ecosystem it lives in that's changing super fast. And JavaScript is more than just a bad language. JavaScript is a platform, and JavaScript is an ecosystem. So you cannot think about JavaScript as in terms of the language. I mean, I'm not a fan of JavaScript as a language. Like, it's not best language. It's not the worst language. I know a couple worse languages than JavaScript, like C#. And then JavaScript is something more because it's platform to run your applications either in the web or on mobile phone, on Node.js. It's ecosystem of amazing ecosystem, most active ecosystem that's out there. Like the productivity of people creating JavaScript libraries, new JavaScript frameworks, coming up with new ideas, the innovation that's there, it's amazing. And also the high quality tooling like NPM. NPM is really high quality tooling, yeah, trust me. Well, you know, most of us have .NET background. The point of the comparison is NuGet. NPM is not so bad in comparison. So yeah, so it's a platform, it's ecosystem. We should start to think about it more as an integration point between different ecosystems. Like the compiled to JavaScript languages are getting more and more popular, and I think this movement will progress. So what will future be? Like, I'm here to talk about future, at least so I've heard like my title suggests that I'm going to talk about the title of this talk suggested that I'm going to talk about the future. The future can promise ever only one thing and only thing, that there will be surprises in the future, so I have absolutely no idea what future will be. Other than web forms, you know, web forms will be the future. But there are a couple of guesses I have. My first guess is always bet on JavaScript. JavaScript is here. JavaScript will stay here longer than any other language that's here right now in the moment. So it will be always in the browser because it's impossible to deprecate JavaScript at the moment. And it probably will never be. Yes, and if someone will start shouting WebAssembly at me, I will hit this person with this mic, I promise. Okay, so WebAssembly, WebAssembly is really great project, but my main point about WebAssembly is that I hope to be retired before it will be ready for mainstream usage. So it's great. It's still so long away to be used in a mainstream way. I mean, there are some interesting experiments with WebAssembly, including this Blazor thingy that no one should ever use. But yeah, like mainstream usage on the level of JavaScript probably will never happen. WebAssembly probably will find some niche for itself because it is good for solving certain types of problems, but I don't really think it will replace JavaScript completely ever. So that's a random guess. My second random guess is that the collaboration between communities is the future. So we need this free flow of ideas, especially in this world where JavaScript is becoming more and more integration platform. So as I've mentioned, there are a lot of JavaScript languages targeting JavaScript that will compile to JavaScript. They come from different backgrounds, from different types of languages. We have a couple of ML languages like Fsharp, like ReasonML, like BuckleScript compiling OCaml. We have Haskell-like languages, PureScript, and so on, so on. We have Lisp-type languages. ClojureScript has been around for more than any other language compiled to JavaScript, probably nowadays. We have good OO languages like TypeScript, actually good OO language. So yes, this free flow of ideas between those communities is something that will happen. And if I would want to ask you about one thing, is that if you are brave enough to do public speaking, go to your local JavaScript meetup and do talk about Fable. if you are organizing Fsharp meetup, invite some people from ReasonML community, and so on, so on, and so on. Please do it. And of course, it means that the reusing of JavaScript tooling will happen more and more. Something that is obvious in the Fsharp ecosystem with Fable, because that's how Fable was designed. It's not really a case for all languages compiling for JavaScript, but I think that in the future, this is a natural path to go, and Fable really proves how well this works. Another point is our applications require more and more real-time communication, and we need to build good abstractions for that, because handling WebSockets directly is not good abstraction in comparison to every other abstractions we have for web programming. This is probably a point connected with our particular case in Safestock, where Saturn is still lacking the good abstractions for real-time communications. This will happen soon-ish, hope soon. Ish. So if you have any experience with using real-time communication, WebSockets, SignalR, Phoenix with channels, I invite you to join the discussions on the Saturn repository to talk a bit about that. Another wild guess, PWAs will be the future. So PWAs is this new way of building web applications that are kind of working offline, that brings web application closer to native user experience, which is really cool. But what's most important for me about PWAs is that they bring new distribution model to the applications. So the fact that you can go to web page and pin this particular web page to your mobile phone, to the home screen on your mobile phone, and it behaves like normal application, where you don't need to go to App Store and install it and accept Apple user license agreement, whatever. It's really huge change in the distribution, and this is the reason why it will be popular, not because it provides offline capabilities, not because it's cool, it's because it makes distribution of software, especially mobile applications, even easier. Because let's imagine, I travel a lot on those different conferences because they are crazy enough to invite me to speak. And every conference nowadays have its own cool, fantastic application for displaying schedule. And I need to go to App Store and install it and then uninstall, and that's not really a good user experience. What if I could go to normal web page as I go on my machine, on my Mac, and then just pin this page and make sure that it's also working offline? This sounds awesome. And Francois had, I bet, really great talk about PWAs. I was unable to watch it, unfortunately, but it was probably awesome, and you should watch it online when it will be published. Super wild guess. Distributed and federated web. So, there are all those dramas about Facebook and Twitter, and Twitter not banning a certain group of people, and Facebook being evil, and Google being evil. So there are some people, especially in GNU community, GPL community, and they are really betting on stuff like federated web. So this idea that you can host applications yourself, but it kind of communicates with other instances of these applications that other people are hosting. There is this social network called Mastodon, something like that. That's kind of like Twitter, but federated. This is wild guess. Federated web has been featured since 80s, so it may not work out. But I think that we've reached certain level of centralization, of control, of the fact that control over the web is in hand of those couple of big companies, that this may happen in the future. And it involves interesting technical difficulties about communication and how to make sure that data is synchronized well, and those are really interesting stuff. Yet another wild guess. Virtual reality and augmented reality, especially in the context of web programming, because Right now, what we have in VR is we write native apps for those VR things. And if those VR magical things will become mainstream, the web needs to come there, and JavaScript will come there. So this is probably like 10 years time future, but it will definitely happen, and JavaScript will definitely be in this space because you always need to bet on JavaScript. And so we will be there because we have Fable, and because we have Fable, we will always be around new stuff. Because Microsoft is a great company. It's sometimes a bit slow to catch up with new things. JavaScript community always catch up with, always invents new things, always is in the A of the cyclone of the new things. So if VR and AR will become mainstream, the JavaScript community will be there, and we will be there thanks to that. So that's awesome. And yes, there are many, many, many different challenges that I have absolutely no idea what they will be. So we will see what future brings. And there is now motivation part of the talk. So dream will always triumph over reality once it's given a chance. Whoa, that's deep. Don't be afraid to dream and have fun. Do create open source projects. Do have fun with them. Start doing open source. Maybe not as contributing, but just as publishing your own projects that you build for fun. Do something fun and publish it on the internet. You are good enough. I have many people coming to me saying, oh, you know, I'm not feeling good enough to publish my code, or I'm not good enough to start programming. So when I started iNight, I was really bad Fsharp developer. My code from back then, and some of this code is still around in FS Autocomplete or in iNight itself, it's pretty bad. And I blame, of course, Thomas. Focus on things that focus on something that's pain for you. So there are also some people in the community that are like, oh, we should solve this and have all those great ideas that they actually, it's not something that hurts them personally. And in my experience with open source development, if the problem is not, if you are not deeply invested, like emotionally into the problem, you will just leave the problem if it's hard enough. So, I mean, contributing to iNight is fun, but I guess like some can come, oh, I want to contribute to iNight, he will come, but if he's using Visual Studio every day, he will probably contribute something, but then he will move on, because in the long term, contributing to something that you are not interested into directly is boring. And help other developers to do the job, even if you don't want to contribute to open source, if you don't want to create your own project, because creating a project might be a bit depressing if you have any users. Oh yes, the worst thing that can happen to your open, I forgot to mention that somewhere here. The worst thing that can happen to your open source project is that you get some users. That's the terrible thing. So yes, help other developers to start with contributing to open source projects. My story with iNight started because I've met a couple of people from Fsharp community on one of those conferences. That was before anyone knew who am I. So I've met some people, of course, including Thomas. I'm blaming Thomas for everything. And yeah, I had really great fun with them, as typically on conferences with Fsharp people, especially on after parties and after parties. And so I knew Thomas, and I've seen somewhere online, oh, there is this great Atom editor thingy, magical, super hackable. We should, this magical phrase, we should do something with that and bring Fsharp support. And Thomas was like, yes, you should do this. And to be fair to Thomas, I've started doing something, but Thomas helped me a lot with that, especially with early days with Fanscript. because yeah, as I've mentioned, Fanscript was terrible, and Thomas knew something about Fanscript because like he was one of the maintainers. Probably he is the reason why Fanscript was so terrible. So help other developers. Maybe you don't want to start open source project, but maybe someone you know wants to start open source project. Maybe some other developer in your company wants to start. Help them to start, share your knowledge with them. Even if you don't directly code or don't directly contribute, just support. Oh, that's a good idea, you should do that. Or just talking with this person about, oh, maybe you should do something differently, but just encouraging them to follow the idea, maybe really good question, maybe really good idea. So do stuff. And because I may not know a lot about the future, but I know one thing, that future, you are the future, you will create the future. Because that's what we do as software developers. We change the world, we change what we do, and we change how we do it. So do it, please. And yes, do you have any questions about this awesome talk? Yes. Francois is coming with the mic.
Hey, thanks for the talk. I have one question. Like, a few years ago, I was introduced to web development in Fsharp. It was a small tool called WebSharper, and which actually has a lot of like features that, for example, like you mentioned, is more so documentation, like samples, like ID, and so on. So where does it stand now, and do you guys get some inspiration from it when creating Fable?
So the second part of the question is probably not to me, because I don't know if Alfonso had any inspiration from WebSharper while creating Fable. First part of the question, where WebSharper is. WebSharper is an amazing project. WebSharper is mature project. It has a company behind it, which means that it's well supported. You can hire those people to help you develop applications with WebSharper. They're really, really good, smart developers, really good people. So yes, that would be answer. Like, they're doing something on their own, and that's fine. Like, not everyone needs to use what I personally suggest. That's the answer, I guess. Don has a question. I'm so afraid. Don't do this, Don.
Which year will Fable and JavaScript targeting F# become the dominant form of F# in the world? when do we reach, what do you call it? The crossover point? What do you call it?
Tipping point.
Tipping point.
Tipping point.
The tipping point.
That's a really good question. I actually think that it may happen just because the JavaScript ecosystem is growing so fast, and there are so many people doing JavaScript. There are probably right now more people doing JavaScript than .NET in general. So even if we have similar percentage of the user base, it's naturally, I think that it may happen in the future. In which year? 2000. What year we have? 2018. Let's say in 5 years.
Well, actually, talking about 5 years, this is a very, very little announcement, but we haven't made it public because it's kind of an experience. But Encave, just this week, released a version of the Fable compiler running purely on Node.js, so you don't need to have any .NET installed in your machine to run a Fsharp compiler right now.
Woo!
That's like that moment in Terminator where Skynet comes alive. Yeah. You've done it.
Always bet on JavaScript. Any other questions?
Hey, so what, in your opinion, is the biggest weakness or the biggest limitation of Fable itself?
Oh my God. Fable is awesome. There are no problems with Fable. No. I think we still have some work to do on the documentation, on the samples, on the tutorials. I think there are still some problems with developer experience. Developer experience is pretty decent in comparison to some languages, some ecosystems, but it still have way to go because whenever I use Fable, I have this feeling that I'm like in the middle of two worlds. So I need to run .NET commands, I need to have package.json, and this on the one hand is of course advantage because it enables this deep integration with JavaScript ecosystem, but I think that we can do better job with hiding this complexity from the users. That would be my personal point. That's with Fable. With Safestock in general, I think that Saturn still needs more work. It's still early days for Saturn. There are some things to be figured out in Saturn. Yeah, but I think that's it.
This is a question for Alfonso. For the thing that Encave just released, well, it's relayed to you. I shouldn't. All right, never mind.
No. Do the question, please.
All right. What's the performance difference between running Fable stuff on .NET versus that .NET-less thing?
Well, it's difficult to say. Depends. We have so much marks, probably around 2 times, 4 times lower in Node.js. But surprisingly, the startup time, which actually I think is the most important fact, because right now Fable takes a bit to start up, is actually 2 times faster in Node.js. So I think, and because this is still an experiment, I don't know how much we can save in the communication. For example, right now we have interpreses communication with Webpack and Node.js and .NET. I don't know if we skip that part. I don't know how much we can save, but yeah, probably one thing is that the Fsharp compiler, of course, is being programmed with .NET in mind, so it has the optimization tricks for .NET that are not working in JavaScript, but maybe in the future, and I don't know if WebAssembly comes, maybe it can become as fast.
Okay, any other questions? Because we have a lot of time because that was last talk, so we can stay here as long as you want. Okay, so if there are no... Oh, congratulations, Hin. That was sick that for me to end, sorry guys. So, some more photos. One more inspirational quote. That's about me and my talk today. I should not talk so much, I know. My name is Chris. You can find me on Twitter. You can email me. You can find me on GitHub. You can find me on 500px if you're interested in photography. Please be interested in photography. You can find me on Goodreads if you're interested in silly books I'm reading. And I have consulting company. Thank you.